Good afternoon. Today I have a slightly different interview with the lovely Adrian and Rebecca. I shall let them introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about themselves.
I'll go first.
You go first,
All right. Well, I'm Adrian Hobart. I'm one half of Hobeck Books, so I provide the Ho, and we are publishers of, well, we know the genres, thrillers, mysteries, crime and suspense, and we've been doing this for approaching 2 years, I guess. Our first book came out only July.
Yeah, July
2020.
Yes, July
right.
2020.
I remember now. And previous to taking up publishing, I was involved in broadcasting. I was a manager and a broadcaster at the BBC. So this is a bit of a departure for me, but I'm enjoying
it. And I'm the Beck. So my name is Rebecca Collins, hence the Beck, Hobeck. And I'm the other half. And here is our lovely logo, our cat, which is inspired by a real cat who's asleep somewhere right now. Before I embarked on Hobeck, I worked in publishing for over 20 years, but it was all non-fiction. So this was a departure for me because I'd never been in the world of make-believe before. And make-believe with killing as well.
And I know a little bit about your story of how you got together, but do you want to tell everyone?
What, the romantic one?
Yeah, it's
okay. Sweet. Let's hope my ex-wife isn't listening. Well, Rebecca and I knew each other at university. And when I say we knew each other, we had a couple of snogs when we were in our final year at university. And although I wrote her a letter about 3-4 months after we'd left, she never replied.
No.
We kept the very vaguest of touch on Friends Reunited and Facebook until nearly 25 years later. We started messaging each other on Facebook in greater earnest, and within a matter of 3 weeks, we were deciding that we wanted to spend our lives together.
Yeah, I mean, it was part of the clincher was that you said you wanted to be a writer.
Yes.
And
yes.
that you needed an editor. So I said, oh, you've come to the right person.
So there was a literary thing that sort of spurred us on. And I started writing for Rebecca. I wrote her a short story based in Manchester, and started writing a children's book for her son, Toby, who's now turned 12, but was only 8 at the time. I was trying to woo her through words, and
it worked.
It worked. And so, yeah, I mean, we've been Hobeck for 2 years, and we've been together for 3. So
4, actually.
Well, 3.5. So yeah, we're still.
Yeah, it's gone really quickly. I think that's why he thought it was only 3. It's gone incredibly quickly. Feels like 10. How rude.
I wouldn't advise that, Adrian, especially when you're locked in a soundproof booth. Not smart.
That's true. No one can hear me scream. That's
right. Exactly.
Yeah. Interesting. Any weapons? Except my caustic wit.
And how and why did Hobeck come about?
Good question.
Oh, that's a very good question. I mean, like Adrian said, it sparked off from his writing, and you were sort of thinking about self-publishing at the time, weren't you?
Yeah. No, I started investigating the phenomena of independent publishing and self-publishing, and I'd already sort of started dabbling in that world anyway through narration. So before I left the BBC, I built a very rudimentary studio and started narrating and started meeting authors that way, and digging into the whole phenomena of independent publishing and how successful people were beginning to be doing it. And then I stumbled across a podcast which was the main guest was Jasper Joffe of Joffe Books, who are powerhouses in this world, in the UK particularly, selling because I think they've just sold their 10 millionth book. And so I turned to Rebecca and said, well, with your knowledge of the industry and my passion for getting something out there, we created the company, and it just seemed to make sense that we'd follow other people have done it. Why can't we?
Yeah, and for quite a while it started off as an idea. We did put a lot of thought into it before we actually embarked on it, didn't we? So sort of bubbling around for, I'd say, about 12 months actually.
Yeah, but I suppose we really broke cover in September 2019. We went to Morecambe and Vice Crime Festival with our business cards, some leaflets,
an enthusiasm,
a brand new website, and the logo, which we're very proud of. That the cat reading the book and there's whiskers and all that thing, which is a lot of people comment on. So we got some things right, but then we turned up trying to find authors. And
we're actually both quite shy as well. So we were there at Morecambe and Vice, weren't we? Sat together and thinking, how do we find people who write books? We're surrounded by them, but how do we approach them?
It seemed impenetrable. But by luck, Adam Croft was doing his podcast there, and Robert Dawes, his usual partner, wasn't able to be there for family reasons, and so I ended up presenting the podcast with him on stage, live in front of the audience. And in that audience was one of our future authors, Anthony Dunford, who went back to his course at UEA, the Crime Writing Masters, and said to his colleagues there, he said, I've just seen this really, the startup company, they sound really interesting. I thought they were great. And so other authors have followed from that stage.
Yeah, because he spoke to Wendy Turbin because they were on the same course together. And so Anthony and Wendy independently submitted without knowing the other was, and both said, well, Anthony said, I've been at Morecambe and Vice, and Wendy said, my friend who went to Morecambe and Vice and heard about you. And so they,
sort of stemmed from that.
And it sort of spread. And I mean, of course, having Robert Dawes as our sort of flagship author, this helps massively because he's lovely, he's well known, he's very talented. And
it was an instant when he said he wanted to sign up for us, which was a shock to us because it's Robert Dawes, it really accelerated the whole process because suddenly we're credible. Our first signing made us credible. As simple as that. People, well, if Robert Dawes is prepared to go with them, then other people, and now we're just at that stage where we're kind of having to keep the drawbridge up because there's just so many people who are interested in working with us. Which is a happy position given that 2 years ago we couldn't find it. We thought we wouldn't find it.
Yeah, it's kind of that's the irony that very first festival we went to, we were brainstorming how to find authors, and now
we're fighting them off.
Yeah, it's lovely when people say, I've heard about you, I want to work with you, and I think, oh, that's so sweet, thank you.
Yeah.
Probably doesn't help that I recommend you to most authors that are looking for a new publisher. I'm like, yeah, go to Hobeck. They'll take you.
That's lovely. Yeah, and I know Joe Singleton has as well. He's recommended a couple of people to us as well. So
no,
it's lovely. It's lovely.
Long may that be the case. But, that's what we're working to sort of fulfil the promise, I suppose. Because it's easy to say the sort of things we do, and we do approach publishing in a different way to a lot of others in terms of the relationship with the authors. I think that we're as more engaged than most, let's put it that way, and more accessible than most. But that's a lot of work, being able to answer queries and phone calls and emails and whatever else. Well, Bex does most of this, and when they come in, we try and react as quickly as possible. We don't leave things dangling too long. Whereas many publishers would say, oh, well, I'll get around to that in a couple of weeks' time. It's not the way we operate.
No, I do try and, it's more for me, actually, that I try and deal with things so they're not dwelling in my head as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that stands out. And you actually go and visit your authors in person, which I think is probably unique to publishers. I don't think I've seen anyone else that does that.
Yeah.
We give them a mug as well, don't we?
Yeah, the mug's important. Yeah. That's the prototype, the original one. I think that's, it's very hard to have a proper creative relationship without actually looking somebody in the eye. It's the truth of it. I mean, we obviously during the pandemic it was difficult. When there were those little windows where things lifted a bit last year, and we went straight into the car and got around as many as we could. And we've continued to do that. There's a few we haven't yet met in person.
Sorry, Lewis, we haven't been to New Zealand yet.
No, that's obviously the trickiest. But We haven't seen Sue Shepherd or Brian Price in person yet, or Terry Nixon. So a trip to the southwest is
yes,
and the south coast is needed.
It helps if they live by the sea, actually.
Yeah. We're very easily influenced to make a move if someone's by the sea, which a lot of authors seem to be. I think it's important. We feel it's important that we meet people. They get to see the reality of who we are, and that's the other thing, is that you can do the sort of shop window pitch on Zoom when you first talking to an author. I mean, obviously, anyone who's having a discussion about signing for a publisher, it's a very exciting time, and the danger, we're always very conscious of this, is over promising. And the reality is that within those 2 years since we started this, the scene has changed considerably. It's a lot harder now to generate sales through Facebook and Amazon ads and all those things, because the traditional publishers woke up to the power of these media, which they hadn't before. They relied on bricks and mortar sales. And when the shop shut, they suddenly realized they had to push harder online. And so they've cut their prices accordingly a lot of the time. You get these top books for 99p now, which would have been unheard of before the pandemic. And they're also using all their marketing muscle digitally. So suddenly everything's got really expensive. And it's hard to really drive sales profitably at the moment. So we're not alone in sort of looking at ourselves and going, this is tougher than we were expecting. And I think a lot of independent publishers are going public now and saying how much they're struggling. So, it's by no means easy. So when you're speaking to an author afresh, obviously everyone hopes, well, we believe in the book, we believe in them. We hope that the audience out there, the readers will find it and will love it and buy it and recommend it to their friends, and everything will take off. But we have to be realistic. It's taking a lot longer, and it's a lot harder slog now than it might have been if we'd started this 4 years ago, say.
And how many authors do you have on the books at the minute?
Oh, there's a good question.
17, isn't
So
it?
is this I believe it's 17.
Yeah,
yes.
No, we know it's 17. We've got 17 at the minute, and we've been working. We opened submissions again in September, and we're hit by a tsunami of electronic.
But the quality, incredible quality. So we have some sort of serious thinking to do, don't we? But because we'd like to have sort of 3 or 4 more shortly, but we it's going to be difficult.
We simply, I mean, it's obviously can't give out names, but these are people are established writers, and we can't. Some of them anyway. Some of them are new as well, very fresh, wonderful talent. But some of them have been writing for 30 years, and they're coming to us. And it's quite daunting, really, looking at the quality of the submissions. So at the moment, we haven't even finished reading the slush pile yet. We keep saying to each other every week, we go, right, this week we're going to slay it, we're going to get that done. And then we ask for full manuscripts for those we might want to work with. And so
we've got lots of reading to do, haven't we, for Christmas?
Well, the problem is, I read at the speed that I did when I was 5 years old, with a finger running along the line. I am the slowest reader in publishing, probably.
I'm a bit faster than you, but it's finding the time.
It's hard. It's hard.
I read in the bath, I read in queues, I read while I'm waiting for the children.
You read in the queue at the darts. We're at the darts, and there are coachloads of people dressed as the Incredibles, nuns, Batman characters, all that sort of stuff.
Mad hair and all sorts. Very crazy, wonderful people.
Right, crazy, wonderful people.
Very excitable as well, weren't they?
It's the queue with the biggest load of people smoking I've ever seen in my life. In this current day and age, and you're there with a copy of Sally Rooney,
which wasn't even a Hobeck book,
reading in the middle of a queue for the darts. I didn't know where to put myself.
So he took a photo of me and put it on Twitter instead.
I saw that.
Well, what else are you going to do in a queue? I mean, there's nothing else to do, is there? So it's time management. That's what it is. We always have books in the toilet as well because there's another good place
who
to
doesn't?
read.
I mean, honestly, I'm deeply suspicious of anybody who doesn't have a book in the toilet.
Oh, I am too. If you go to someone's house and it's immaculate with no books, and the only thing you can read is the Domestos bottle.
I don't think we have books in our toilet.
Good.
But then,
Yeah, it's a
I
deal
mean, that's
breaker.
my only break from reading usually is when I get up to pee and then I go back to the book.
Exactly.
That's literally
Yeah.
it. A
No,
book
I
a
mean,
day
Michael
is
Caine is in our toilet at the moment.
Yeah, he's fixing the S bend. Yeah,
You might come
I
in.
don't know who's done this, but
God.
Who else would we have in our toilet except for Michael Caine?
well, we've got in the upstairs one, we've got Sean Williamson, who played Barry in EastEnders. So we've got his book on quizzing, which I absolutely adored.
And I've actually interviewed Sean Williamson, would you know?
All right, show off. I'm not sure which bigger honour it was for him or for you.
Oh, he was starstruck. Absolutely.
It's a brilliant book, and he's I know his image is sort of I don't know. It's one of those which it belies the man because he's really incredibly bright and
yeah, because in
sharp,
EastEnders
actually.
he was a bit sort of
he was always
blurry, wasn't he, and a bit dim.
a bit dim. Yeah, it was stumbling into
Especially when it
problems.
came to his evil women.
Yeah. Well, I don't
But
know.
isn't he like one of the most successful Pointless contestants ever? He's won
Yeah,
3 times or something. So,
that's
yeah.
correct. You're absolutely right. He's won umpteen finals and he beat the Chasers. He's won the Chase for charity. And he takes part in the Quizzing Grand Prix, which at the top 150 quizzes in the UK take part in this. It's kind of an invitational thing. And he's come, I think, as high as 57. So he's up against the Eggheads and all those sort of people, and all the people in the Chase. All the Chasers take part in this quiz.
So if you're in a quiz and they ask you what ranking did Sean Williamson come, you wouldn't just like that.
Of course. I've got a mind like his in the sense that I pick up little bits of information, and when I'm in a quiz situation, I can suddenly pull it out and
He does.
figure out
He's a
answers.
good quiz partner.
Yeah.
We were in
embarrassing,
Cornwall, weren't we? Local
Yeah.
pub, and he was brilliant. Whereas I'm sat there going, "Oh, I know it. Oh, it's so and so thingy jobs."
I think one of
Well,
my
you need to be.
Sorry.
You need
go
to
on.
come to the Harrogate quiz next time. Then we were rubbish.
Yeah, it looked like it was a bit of a fix, so the actual authors always win it. But
Well, they do like a non-authors and then an authors. So the authors team that was run by Richard Osman.
yeah,
They got like 48 out of 55 or something. And the non-authors got about 12. It was shocking.
right. Well,
Really
he's kind of a special case, isn't he? in
Yeah, I was
many
going to
ways?
say he's.
But no, it's interesting. I took my nephews when they were quite a lot younger. They must have been about 14 and 12. We went to the local quiz in our village, my old village. And it's a really serious quiz because the village has a lot of people living in it who either taught or do teach at Manchester University, and so it's pretty hardcore. So I'm sat there with these 2 teenage lads, or one not quite a teenager, and between the 3 of us, we smashed these teams of 6 and 7. We won it by a mile, and they just literally, we actually got around a standing ovation.
Oh, that's quite cool.
But then, I ought to point out that Thomas is now, the older one, is at Trinity College.
Yeah, so
doing maths.
they may have been young, but they had good heads on them.
Yeah, they were super mega bright. But yeah, I think that was a day. That really was. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I pick up all my random facts from QI. If it's not been on QI, I don't know.
Well, it's a fascinating world of facts, isn't it?
Yeah. And I live with 3 people who absolutely love random facts. So 2 of my boys, they're the same as you, aren't they? They just absorb information. It's like living with 3 Googles. In fact, my oldest son, when he was at primary school, his nickname was Wiki Luke.
Was it?
Yeah.
And the other one was called Toby, You're a Walking Dictionary. Yeah, we were called out by 2 kids in a Greg's queue, wasn't he? And said, "Oh, it's Toby, the Walking Dictionary." I'm not sure if it was meant affectionately or not.
Bless.
I mean, you don't want a shortened dictionary, do you?
Stop it.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, we'll work that one out for ourselves.
Leave it there.
So why did you decide to stick to the 4 genres that you have?
Yeah, I think we ask ourselves that same question sometimes.
Well, it's kind of strange, isn't it? Because I didn't used to read crime particularly. I read lots of different things and lots of quirky fiction, but I wouldn't call myself a fan of crime fiction.
And I actually wasn't much of a reader, really. I mean, I'm a surfer of everything, culturally, but I never sat down and read books. I might get through 10 a year, certainly not the sort of levels I'm doing now. But I love thrillers, without question. I love thrillers. But we pick those genres because they're established favorites, aren't they? I mean, crime in certainly the UK is the number one genre. Certainly, in terms of what the bookshops promote and sell, it does everything. Nothing comes close. Privately, of course, romance is obviously very strong, but I just didn't see, you or I being able to run the rule over romance books successfully.
Yeah, I didn't have the same sort of pull towards something like romance. I definitely felt almost a challenge with the crime and mystery genres. And I have come to love it as well, especially psychological thrillers.
Yeah.
So I've read quite a lot since, and my reading habits have changed.
Yeah.
So,
and I suppose I'd narrated quite a few crime books, and so I was familiar with the genre, the way it was going, and what was popular at that time. And indeed thrillers. So it's, it felt like in a way the natural fit, and also because I've been dabbling with my own writing, but got nowhere because, frankly, Hobeck now as a publishing house is all consuming, and I'm using that as an excuse to some extent, but, as Rebecca would say. But I would love, I was writing, or have been writing, thrillers, I suppose.
Yes, I mean, I think
cross genre.
Yeah. So the book that you're still working on it's cross genre. It has a bit of lots of different things, but it is a thriller in the core. So.
Well, it's interesting because I actually based it. The structure, it's the only sort of bit of structure I've actually applied to it, is actually a romance structure, because at its heart is a love story between, our main character Rafe and Violette. This is set in wartime, so it's 1940, and that was a really good way of although there's lots of suspense elements and mystery elements, so basically a big conspiracy that they've stumbled upon, run by the Nazis. They're not aware of it, and actually the sort of dynamic of the thing, the actual structure and where the plot points land are points in their relationship where they kind of get together but they're quiet, and then they split apart again because of circumstances and mutual suspicion of each other. They start to believe the other one's responsible for what's going on, and then eventually it sort of resolves itself in a tragic ending where I've given Violette the worst decision of her life to make. Who lives, who dies.
But you'll have to wait till it's written to find out.
I know how it's going to end. I haven't got to that point where I managed to make it.
And a rather well-known writer has encouraged you to finish it, hasn't he?
Well, I'm under orders now from Abir Mukherjee to get it, no less, to get it done.
And he's going to get a hot off press copy.
Yeah, and he'd be the cover, strapline guy. Which I think you'll regret that.
You'll probably say, if it wasn't for me, that you wouldn't be reading this book.
Something like that. I'm to blame.
Fair, yeah. What have you have? What have you found most difficult about going into publishing, and what's been surprisingly easier than you thought, and what's been surprisingly harder than you thought?
Very good questions.
Yeah, very good questions.
So should we start with the most difficult?
Well, the most difficult thing is money.
Well, I'd say for me, dealing with it's been difficult dealing with a big company such as Amazon.
Yeah. yeah, I mean, you've had
because we're just a small fish in a massive pond, and that's been quite challenging. I think.
So let's break that down. I mean, basically, any independent author will tell you, or publisher will say, it's out of your hands. I mean, you're reliant on, in Amazon's case, the algorithm saying yes, and we have lost count of the number of times we're 24 hours from publication, and it's happened to us again today, where they'll bounce something back at you and say, you're not entitled to publish this book, and we're going to strip you of your KDP status if you don't, blah, blah, blah. So you get these terrible threats, and then there's no one to actually physically contact and try and sort it out. That is really, really stressful. But that's sort of front of mind. And I said money because, like any new business, a lot of money goes out before we start seeing any coming back in. And let's not forget that the nature of the business is that you might have a good month's sales, but you won't see that money for 2 months, if it's in the case of Amazon. So it's delayed gratification. So I think it's cost, the costs of doing a good job are higher than we first anticipated. I mean, we don't scrimp on any element of the production process, which, as I say, editing is expensive if you're doing it properly with good people. Cover design is expensive if you're using, and then printing physical copies, is an expensive business now. And the costs have shot up in the last 6 months. As everything has in the UK, the cost of the paper and the delivery and all that stuff is
Brexit and all sorts of...
all sorts of impacts. So there are elements there that are tough. But the things we found east, I mean, this kind of surprised you, didn't they? I mean, once we'd got the right software, to format books.
That definitely, because being from a traditional background, and also 15 years ago, for 15 years prior to when we started Hobeck, was when I worked for a company, and you had typesetters who were in a different location, the printers obviously were in a different location, and then you had the marketing department and publicity department and what's called publications, and they're the people who issue the ISBN. So everything took a lot of time, and it was a lot of toing and froing. So it would be typeset, then you'd get a sample, you'd say yes, but change this, it'd go back again, then you'd get proofs go to an editor, they get checked, then they come back to you, then they go back to the typesetter, and it was sort of this constant toing and froing, where because we do the typesetting, if an author will say, oh, I've just found a typo, I can correct it, upload it back onto Amazon, and it's done just like that. And so I suppose that it's the ease of workflow, I suppose.
I think the fact is that you can we're running a business from our home with basically all the technology and software and support, apart from Amazon, that we need to get the books out there. And it's unheard of. The speed at which we, if we really chose to turn a book around quickly, we could do that.
Yeah, we could do it in a couple of weeks if that made sense.
It doesn't make any business sense to do that, and it would probably kill us doing it. But nonetheless, all of that's possible. So there's that element, and then obviously there's the thing that takes the most time, which is looking after our authors and well, I mean, there was a terrible phrase I used to have it in BBC, and I hate the phrase, but talent management, as they called it. The talent who in the BBC are treated like gods and behave like devils as a result. No, I mean, our authors, just being in a position where we can not only deal with their problems but also anticipate them, and also just keep a dialogue going in between the flashpoints of publication, so that there's a feeling that we've got a good, strong relationship outside of, have you looked at the proof, are you happy with the cover, is the blurb right, all that stuff. Then that's harder to do the more people we take on, obviously, because you can't just pick up the phone to every author and say, do you fancy a chat for half an hour? And that's not how it works. We haven't got time to do that. But those are the elements.
Something that I think is perhaps unique to you as Hobeck is that you, firstly, you have your own podcast, and secondly, that you're recording your own audiobooks. So again, how and why did they come about?
Well, the podcast, we felt, I mean, it was slightly inspired by other podcasts by independent people in the independent sector who it's really good content marketing, let's be honest. But if nothing else, we wanted it to be a showcase for the authors. So it's one guaranteed place where we could put our authors and bring them to the world and express, let them express their creativity and them, the thinking behind all their books and express their personalities. So that was one thing. We've also been very keen to, with the podcast, I mean, it sort of has twin aims, really. The first being that big feature interview, whether it's with yourself or with the authors or with editors or whoever it might be, or guest stars. That's one thing. But then, of course, it's the dialogue about what in week to week we're doing to build and try and get Hobeck to where we want it to be. The trials, the tribulations, and the ups and downs.
And it's a chance to talk about the cat and Malcolm Rutherford and
well, it's really funny that actually we sit down just before we go in, and it's usually reasonably unplanned. We'll have 3 or 4 talking points, and that's about as much as we know we're going to do. None of it's scripted.
No, especially the interviews aren't at all, are they?
No, not at all, not at all. And we will use it always staggers us when we come off the recording. God, we did that this week. Oh, that happened. Yeah, forgotten about that.
But I mean, the interesting thing about the podcast for me is I'd never done anything like that in my life. So it came up over Christmas when we sort of thought we could try doing a podcast, and we thought we'll give it a go. We might get 1 or 2 weeks done.
I mean, I can't lie. I mean, I've missed using the microphone when I left the BBC. I mean, I wasn't doing much of it anyway, because when you're a manager, it's frowned upon. Even though that's my background, I was a broadcaster first and foremost from, since 1990. So that was important for me, to be able to get back in the microphone. But what's been so beautiful is the fact that Rebecca and I have a very, what you hear on air is a total reflection of the way we talk to each other normally. So this natural relationship on air and the comfort we have talking to each other. It's a highlight of my week doing the podcast. Yeah. On a Saturday or Sunday when I say, when are we going to do the podcast? Yeah. And I get so excited. Look, hang on a second. Well, Man United are playing it too.
Oh, we have to do it around sports events. It's always, isn't it?
Yeah.
We once did it in half time. We managed to squeeze it in half time in the Manchester United game because that was the only time we could do it.
And the other thing with the audiobooks, you mentioned, look, I mean, I'm a little bit cynical about the propaganda around the audiobook industry, because the public face, it's double-digit growth every year within the audiobook industry, and it's worth X billion pounds, but it's only worth about 1.3 billion worldwide, the latest figures, which compared to publishing is minute. It's a fraction. So I think people can get carried away with the impact of audiobooks. The problem is that there are many great things about audiobooks, but there are many great problems as well when you're making them. The time it takes. I think it staggers people how long it takes to do. And it always depresses me, because I've been editing this morning, one of our future productions, and I've been there for sort of a couple of hours, and I've only got 3 chapters edited, and they're quite short because of the level of detail you've got to go into to make sure that it flows perfectly. So I've done the performance. I mean, I should have done it first time, perhaps a bit better. But the fact is that when I'm in the studio that we're sitting in at the moment, I'm doing several things at once. I'm not just reading the script and, I'm doing the character voices, obviously, but I'm also listening to myself and trying to figure out where I've made a mistake or not got the emphasis right in a particular sentence, or the accent slipped, which happens all the time. Over the course of a book, a character, I hate to say it, if they're a minor character at the beginning of the book, they'll sound completely different at the other end if I'm not careful. This is a message really for Malcolm, who'll be watching this, no doubt.
Hello, Malcolm.
The biggest challenge I've yet had, and I've had some really, really big books, but doing the Merseyside crime series and trying to do different Merseyside accents has been chucking on a can of Coke. Not so easy, I've slipped into very bad.
Well, that was quite a soft one, wasn't it?
Yeah,
that was a Brookside level.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's very easy to sound like you're on a Harry Enfield show. Hey, calm down. if you're not careful. So it's all of these books are a challenge. And also the other thing you've got to do is ultimately you're there responsible for interpreting the book in a way the author wanted, but also the way the listener can enjoy it. So that you sound like if they were just reading it, you're somewhere approaching where they can hear the characters in their own minds. Because nowadays, of course, with Amazon and WhisperSync, you can flick between the two. You could read 20 pages on your Kindle and then pick up the audiobook the next time, and it'll recognize it and play it from there. So yeah, lots and lots of challenges. But why do we do it? Well, I think it's an important it's a revenue stream for a start. Second thing is it makes our books look more credible. The more audiobooks come out, and you can see it on Amazon, available in audio as well, you look like a bigger publisher, And my ambition for it would be that we would be in a position where we're publishing at the same time. We're not in that position now because you can't guarantee it's going to be on the same day, because Audible doesn't work like that. And the other thing is that, we have to lengthen the gap between receiving final manuscript and publication to give us enough time to do the audio. Because
it's got to be correct, hasn't it? So what you're reading has to match the printed.
Absolutely. So, but we'll get there.
Yeah, I mean, in 2 years, it's pretty phenomenal. Plus, you do your own blog tours as well, which, again, not every publisher does, especially independent ones. So
I just fancied the challenge. I think it was Ollie Jarvis. He said, do you do blog tours? And I thought, I know people who do blog tours freelance, but I thought I quite fancy having a go, seeing if I could, do all the artwork and contact the bloggers myself and get it all together. And I love it because I love talking to book reviewers and readers and bloggers, because they're so enthusiastic and they're so passionate and they're so willing to do what they can to help you. So
well, I think you've done a remarkable job, because when you first reached out with Robert Dawes,
I was really nervous.
And you were getting the door shut in your face by an awful lot of people, wasn't it?
Because they'd never heard of us. So
and now it's people are approaching us.
I love it when I get an email. Somebody the other day on Twitter said, can I be added to your list of bloggers? And I absolutely. Yes, please.
I think,
come along, join.
That above all else is probably the biggest indicator that the 2 years of getting from logo design to being publicly known, that's how far we've come. I suppose the challenge for us in the future is being known worldwide as well. So I think we're in the foot slopes of the UK market, but it's still a battle to get America to sit up, let alone Australasia or any other markets that we could sell books into. But Canada seemed to like our books.
I think they just like crime in moody places in Canada, don't they? They like the mountains. So, for example, Crossfire by Terry Nixon. The Canadians love that.
Yeah.
And they also like Sleeping Dogs by Wendy. I don't know whether it's a seaside element or they've got lots of ghosts in Canada. That could be. I don't know.
Who would be your dream author? Who would you love to sign?
She said. You'd like something to publish by me. Yeah, no, that's sweet. Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, some of the bigger name authors that we've met now.
I think Abir, actually.
Yeah, Abir, after our conversation.
Because he's lovely. He's just lovely.
Yeah, he'd be just. It'd be like plugging yourself into the mains for being re-energized. In terms of wisdom and knowledge, it's got to be in Rankin as well. You could spend hours in his company, and you probably gently take the mickey and put you in your place.
I actually think it's an author who's very rich, owns an island, and has parties for their publisher on their island.
And I think the third one, having had a riotous interview with him when he was hungover, and Mark Billingham.
Oh yeah, Mark Billingham was also lovely.
Amazing. As well. So look, I mean, there are so many great people out there, but I think that in terms of generosity of spirit, that's what you really want to sign with a big name. Someone who's going to give their time to the other authors and lift them as well. I think it's like when big artists of the past were started to go back on the market. So, I mean, for instance, David Bowie, I think, changed record company a couple of times, and people were signing him not based on thinking that he was actually going to shift many records with his, latter stuff, but it was all about the impact it had on the younger bands, the fact that they were signed to the same label as David Bowie. So yeah, if you have one of those attached to the company, it'd be wonderful. Yeah, and I think for both of us, but all of those people we've spoken to have made us come away feeling greater sense of self-belief that we belong and that we shouldn't feel like imposters. My son.
That's awesome. Yeah. I'm trying to get Abir to come and talk to me, but he's not replied yet.
Well,
I mean, he's a very busy man. I mean, it took us a while to sort of coordinate, didn't it? So...
Yeah, and I think with the latest one, The Silence of Men, it's been bonkers, hasn't it? I mean, the big feature interview in the Times this week as well. Yeah, I'm sure he will. But
he will. I won't let him get away with it.
So. No, absolutely.
I'm still chasing Simon Koenig up after Harrogate.
Well, yeah, he owes you.
He does. I know, he knows it as well. You've had some pretty awesome names on your podcast. Is there one person that you want to have on that you haven't yet?
Yeah, Val McDermott. As you know, because you've seen us, she'd be there in the street in Stirling or wherever, and we're just too afraid to approach her.
There she is. Oh, she's just gone into McDonald's.
Yeah. It's not on her, it's on us. Because we haven't actually asked her. So I think she's high up on the list, and I would love to speak to a Michael Connolly or someone like that, or one of them, the really
Stephen King.
Oh, Stephen King,
because he was so cool in that in Stirling, wasn't he?
He'd be fun. Yeah. I think that there's mega multi-million selling authors, the ones who've really thought through every aspect of the business. They're the ones you want to get on there.
Yeah, because we want their wisdom, don't we?
Yeah, I suppose so. I mean, something we hadn't really mentioned when we were talking about the podcast is just how much we learn from it.
Oh, every week.
And as much as anything, we're trying to sort of, when we're getting somebody on like Simon McLeave, have you sold 1 million books in the space of 18 months? How is that possible? He didn't quite give us the answers, but he said enough to suggest that it is possible. Of course it is, because he's done it. We've got LJ Ross as a promissory.
Oh yes,
looking forward to that. But she's just had a daughter, so she's a bit busy.
Yeah, I have to wait till she's sort of gone past the first 6 weeks.
So maybe next year we'll speak to LJ, and I think that's particularly special because she's done it off her own bat, and she's really the shining example of what's achievable from the UK in terms of sales and building a brand, and also giving back, because let's not forget she does an awful lot to give back to creative enterprise in the Northeast and encourage new writing and all this sort of thing. I mean, I don't know where she finds the time, but she really has done amazing things, and she sold 6 million books. I mean, it's just and done it in a way that I like the books. I've read or listened to 6 or 7 of them now. They're not pulling up trees, but they're really well crafted and well thought through. Beautiful covers, celebration of the Northeast, particularly her main series, and they're well grounded, but they deserve the success they've had. There's no element of she's not braggadocious. There are quite a few people in the indie scene who go around, saying, "Look at me, I've sold X amount of copies, and I'm the big I am." I've no interest in speaking to them. I think people who recognise their luck and their talent and their hard work deserve everyone's, support and praise, really.
So we are going to interview her, and we look forward to it.
Yeah. definitely.
Yeah, I know she's amazing, isn't she? And she's heavily pregnant and doing up her house, and you don't even know half the stuff she does. Have you read the Everyday Kindness anthology that she?
Not yet, no.
Malcolm, of course, is in there.
He is.
So we need to have a look.
Teasing.
TC's in there, yeah. We haven't looked at it yet. But
No.
again, another great initiative from her. And we're doing something similar ourselves, as you know, with the Dark Side of Christmas from the Hobeck stable. We hope to raise quite a bit of money for street reads up in Scotland. But, fingers crossed with that. But that's I think a good example of. I mean, she set up our publishing house. I don't know quite how many other people are with it, with Dark Sky Publishing, but I imagine that's going to be the next thing they work on is broadening
it to include other authors.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. So when you're not being parents to your boys, and when you're not audiobooking and podcasting, how do you like to spend your time if you get any free time at all?
Well, asleep.
Well, in your case, you just sleep. That's all you've got. No, I mean, if Rebecca had the time, she'd be painting.
Yeah, because
creating art, because that's what she's trained in, and has a passion for.
Yeah.
And I don't hold back in doing what I want to do. So I'm fortunate. I mean, I get to play golf with my kids and go and watch sport occasionally, obviously on telly mostly, but I've got a season ticket at Man United. So my boys take that most of the time. I think if we had more time, I'd be quizzing a bit more.
We watch stuff on TV. What is it? Succession we're watching?
Yeah, watching Succession.
And Squid Game is lined up as well.
Yeah, a few things like that. I watch a lot of old military stuff. Whether it's information films for the Royal Navy in the 1970s on how to load your weapon, stuff like that. I mean, I surf YouTube relentlessly.
I mean, for me,
for glints of gold.
Reading. So when I'm not reading a Hobeck book, reading is my escape. So yeah, reading and painting.
I think once lockdown's down, I would love to spend more time just getting out to see old friends, having a drink, every 6 months or something, meeting up with people that have been friends since I was a teenager, kind of thing. It just hasn't been possible, has it? So that's important to me. But if I had a sort of magic wand, I mean, there's one thing I want to do, which I haven't done yet, is going to see my little nephews in Australia, who were born in January. And, he looks bonny, but was it January? It was May.
Yeah, it was May. It was spring. Yeah.
So spring. Sorry. Teddy. So that would be lovely. But generally speaking, I'm lucky in that I can do a lot of the things I want to do. But Bex is you just feel uncomfortable not doing stuff.
I feel guilty. Yeah, I even feel guilty reading like Sally Rooney in the queue.
And not one of ours. How dare you? Yeah, and I suppose the other thing I would do is write more, because actually the reason I started writing, apart from trying to woo Rebecca, was actually I found it at the time of. I mean, I was going, it was a classic midlife crisis in many ways, but I was sort of deeply unhappy on a number of levels, not least at work, and I couldn't help it. I would sit at my desk, and this got me into a lot of trouble in the end. I would be writing my novel during work time because, to be honest, I didn't have a lot to do. That's the honest truth of it. I mean, we'd had a change of management. My new boss was a control freak, so just did everything anyway. And I was just sat there being bored. So I surreptitiously stick Spotify on, slip my headphones on, because everyone wears headphones in the BBC. You're encouraged to, because you can't interrupt the broadcasting. And I'd be quietly sort of on Google Docs knocking out a novel, just to keep my mind from exploding, because I'd be sat in the office for 10 hours. And the only interruption was somebody asking about why their career wasn't going well. Why weren't they presenting Strictly Come Dancing yet? Because you're only 21 and you're not very good. That kind of thing.
I have to ask, especially as Rebecca is ready to ask, who is your
I
first
know what's
celebrity
coming.
crush?
Teenage crush.
Your first crush, your first
Celebrity teenage crush.
celebrity. So not that mine wasn't a teenage. I was younger than teenage.
Mm.
Tommy Steele.
Oh, shut up.
I was
Really?
yeah. So I saw him in pantomime when I was, I don't know, maybe 11 or so, and I thought I'm going to marry him. He's the perfect man. He could sing, he could dance, he was good looking from a distance, and
Really?
I did. I wanted to marry Tommy Steele.
Wow. My first.
It didn't happen.
No, it didn't. No, no. But now I know this. We're not happening either. Celebrity crush. Well, I was forewarned of this, and I started thinking of some names. But then every time I said someone, you said who?
Well, I'm not very good with celebrities generally, am I? It's like, oh, thingy from what's it?
Well, okay. So I suppose my first stirring, if that's the right word, was watching On Her Majesty's Secret Service and Diana Rigg. In a sort of negligee thing, and I thought, oh, blimey, that's a strange sensation. But the person I would have stalked if I'd had the opportunity was the actress Sherry Lungi in the early 80s, who was just like in Monocle Mutineer and The Manageress and things like that. But she was just, I mean, she still is. She's stunning, and just had something about her which I loved. But I really like Barbara Flynn in A Very Peculiar Practice, who. Yeah, she's been in loads of crime stuff. But she's definitely, of the sort of British character actress sort of level. Yeah, but hey, who am I had a crush on now? So
yeah, I mean, he's got a whole list. So you've got a separate podcast for celebrity crushes.
Yeah, I know. I couldn't even begin to list mine now. I'd forget people as well, and it's
Well, when I worked at Television Centre, I used to stalk. The professional dancers, the ladies of Strictly Come Dancing. So I think at one stage I was really Camilla Dullarup's shadow, where she's not on the program anymore. She's moved over to New Zealand.
Never heard of her.
Spiritual kind of meditative kind of person, coach. But yeah, I used to follow her around. Something chronic.
Well, they are hot, to be fair, all of them, even the women and the guys on Strictly. Just
yeah, it was very funny. They used to gather in what we used to call affectionately the donut of Television Centre. That's the round circular bit that Top Gear's presented from now, but used to feature a lot on when they did the World Tap Dancing record and stuff like that.
I remember watching that.
Yeah, so that was done in the donut. So the stars of the show would be gathered outside having a tab. You'd have James Jordan.
A tab? What's a tab?
Smoking.
Oh.
Bruno would come out and sort of do the old flowing, flamboyant arms, and there'd be like Anton de Beck having a cheeky fag or whatever, or or snifter before.
Surely, if you're a dancer, you wouldn't be able to smoke because you need to.
They were all chain smoking.
Well, I never know.
Giovanni was like giving it all that. And, yeah, I don't know. Well, don't you see? Thing is, two of the people I produced in the past, Chris Hollins, I was his sort of kind of personal gimp really for a long time on BBC Breakfast. He won it, of course, and Oria Dubo is another one who I know who won it. And I'm telling you now, even though Dan Walker really can't dance, the votes he's getting allegedly. He'll be in the top three. So, a lot of these are people I've produced. And so, yeah, I mean, I heard all the secrets about what went on in the spray tans and all the other secret.
Well, spray tan's hardly a secret.
Wardrobe malfunctions and all sorts of and who was let's say, interacting more closely with their dance partner than others. There's a lot of that going on. You're shocked?
No, not really, because I don't watch it.
Oh. I've watched it this year I haven't watched it for a few years, but I cried like 3 times on Saturday.
Really? Wow.
No, I'm not usually that bad either, but Rose, and when it went quiet, and yeah, it was beautiful.
Yeah, there's some. I mean, it is amazing production, and what they achieve in a very short time. The celebrities becoming dancers, it's amazing.
I like it when they do it on ice.
That's the other
I've
side.
watched that as well. Yeah.
I'd rather that than just.
Well, I like the fact they die on that. You know, Gemma Collins going down on the ice on you know, 3 times a week was just TV gold as far as I'm concerned. You know? I really thought she was going to come out with a brain hemorrhage, but anyway,
Whoever she is, she's not relation.
she's in the only way.
No. Yeah, you wouldn't want to be related to her.
Sure.
Well, anyway, I don't think I have any more questions for you guys, unless you think there's anything I haven't asked you that you want to share with us.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure. I mean, you know, we were saying beforehand that it's a little odd for us to be the other side of the microphone in terms of. You know,
I didn't have to think of a
questions.
random question, so that's odd.
No, it's been a real pleasure, and you know, I know both of us wanted to say, you know, what you do for us, and we said this when we interviewed you. You know, you do for us and for all the other indie authors is huge, and for the crime community, and you know, we're extremely grateful because. You know, there's only so much we can do, but without sort of the effort you put in and others put in on our behalf, and for the passion for the subject and for the genres, you know, we'd be nowhere. So thank you.
No, it's wonderful. I just love how enthusiastic everybody is, and they you know, keep that level of enthusiasm. And I think it is my favorite part of the day is interacting with people on Twitter or the bloggers and reviewers on email and stuff, and finding out more about them and what makes them tick. And I love it. Yeah,
I suppose that's it. I mean, when things are dark and you're thinking, right, well, you know, we've gone to all this effort and it sold 6 copies. Not quite.
7.
Yeah, the community sort of rallies around, and you know, that feeling lifts your spirits, you know, more often than you sort of perhaps take notice of.
Oh, when you get an email from somebody, and I had one the other day, and she said, "Another great author. How do you find them? Who are these people?" I loved it, and you get that enthusiasm back. And, you know, they've discovered a new writer, and they're, you know, it's made their day, and it makes my day that they feel that way, and it's genuine. And
sure is.
So before we go, would you just like to tell everyone where they can find out more about you, where they can find a podcast?
Absolutely. Yeah, so our main home is our website is www.hobeck.net, where you'll find the podcast page and download it there. It's available on all the major platforms, you know, Apple and wherever else. And that's also the home for, you know, if you want to find out about our authors, you can buy our paperbacks there. Most of our books are currently exclusively with Amazon in terms of ebooks, so that may change in the near future. You never know. It's the more they mess us about. But yeah, find out more about us there on our website, because and we've got a mailing list which we'd love you to subscribe to at www.hobeck.net, because we run competitions on a regular basis with some fabulous prizes which people love. But if nothing else, you get a chance to download Crime Bites, which is a series of stories by our authors. I think we've got 8 or 9, is it?
Do you know what? I've lost count. Well, it's quite significant now.
It's completely free, and you get a free download of that for your Kindle or whatever read you've got. And we'd be delighted for you to sample some of our authors and learn more about us. Yeah, and just get in touch on Twitter or Facebook, or email us, and we're happy to answer any questions. Or I ought to say what the podcast is. It's the Hobeck Book Show. Is where you'll find it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Donna.
Yeah, thank you. It's been fun.